On this day, Israel unites to remember those who have fallen in battle and those who have been killed in terrorist attacks going all the way back to the 1860s, when work began on the first Jewish neighborhoods outside the walls of Jerusalem's Old City. Yes, today is the day of remembrance for the martyrs of Israel, but even as we mourn those who have fallen, the struggle to remain in this land continues. The IDF operation in Rafah in the Gaza Strip is intensifying with ground maneuvers and airstrikes on Hamas positions. At the same time, the IDF is returning to Jabalia, a city further north that was believed to be cleared of Hamas terrorists, but apparently they're trying to reassert their presence there. So how long is the operation expected to last in the northern Gaza Strip? Even further north, there is an urgent question about whether Hezbollah is really afraid of an all-out war with Israel. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 221st day of this war against Hamas, Iran, and other enemies of the State of Israel. As I mentioned, today is Israel's National Memorial Day. This is a very sad day and also a very important day, especially this year. And this year, Israel unites with the memory of the fallen soldiers and victims of terrorism, as well as the hostages and the victims of October 7th massacre that was carried out by Hamas. Yesterday, a 1-minute long siren was sounded at 10 a.m., marking the beginning of the Day of Remembrance for the fallen. Immediately after, the memorial ceremonies began across the country, with the main ceremony taking place at the Western Wall Plaza in Jerusalem. It's hard for me to explain the sadness that this day brings every year, but this year more than ever, when we think of all these young people who were taken this year, our hearts break. This war has touched every single family in Israel, and there is no one who has not lost someone they care about since October 7th. These soldiers who have been killed fighting for the future of me and my children and the rest of the Israeli citizens, the civilians who were butchered or kidnapped, could have been me and my children. And we are all aware that the enemy we're fighting knows nothing of mercy or human decency. The truth must come out, even if there are many who don't want to hear it. So please share these videos on YouTube, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and follow us on social media and continue to share with people around you what really is happening here. Switching focus now to events on the last 24 hours in the Gaza Strip. The IDF has continued to hit terror targets all over the Gaza Strip, with an emphasis on the main focal points in Gaza City, the villages in the center of the Strip, and Rafah. According to a Palestinian report, this morning Division 162 began advancing ground forces into the eastern neighborhoods of Rafah. The evacuation of Palestinian civilians to the humanitarian shelter area continues, with the IDF distributing leaflets in these neighborhoods calling on the residents to evacuate. So far, about 300,000 Gazan civilians have moved towards the expanded humanitarian space in Mawasi. Elsewhere, the Air Force attacked terror targets in the Zaytun neighborhood in the heart of the city of Gaza. Meanwhile, the IDF's ground maneuver is underway in the southern Gaza Strip. The terrorist organization Hamas has revealed new photos of the commander of the organization's in Rafah brigade, Muhammad Shabana, who is in command of 4 terrorist battalions. Unlike other elements in Hamas, Shabana has kept a relatively low profile until now. The purpose of publishing Shabana's photos now is to glorify his image and raise the morale of the terrorists in Rafah. This is necessary because in the last few days it's been reported that 2 of the 4 battalions who are in Rafah have escaped the IDF's perimeter, probably using tunnels that the IDF hadn't found yet, and redeployed north of the areas of Khan Yunis and the center of the Gaza Strip. According to IDF intelligence estimates, Shabana's remaining forces in Rafah are weaker than other forces that the IDF has already engaged with in other parts of the Gaza Strip. Another important element in all this is that Sabana has a personal score to settle with the IDF, as his two sons were neutralized fighting in the Nukhba units of Hamas early in the war. They are believed to have taken part in the October 7th massacre, and they were both neutralized fighting with IDF troops in the battles that came later. This makes Sabana's plans a bit harder to predict, as he is likely to make irrational decisions, even tactical ones, but there is nothing easy or simple about fighting terrorism. Speaking of which, in the last 24 hours, the Air Force attacked and destroyed more than 150 terrorist targets throughout the Gaza Strip in coordination and direction of the ground forces. Amongst the targets that were destroyed were rocket launchers, which is incredible to me personally that there are still any rocket launchers left in the Gaza Strip after all this time. But rockets are still being fired into Israeli communities, and we still have to go after them, along with ammunition depots, observation posts, tunnel shafts, and other terrorist infrastructure. According to intelligence reports I've seen, there are 4 intact Hamas formations operating in the Gaza Strip. 2 battalions remain in Rafah, another is operating in Jabalia, and the 4th in Zaytun, where 4 soldiers from the Nahal Brigade were killed by an IED explosion over the weekend. American intelligence indicates that Yair Sinwar and the rest of the Hamas senior leadership is hiding in Khan Yunis, surrounded by most of the remaining Israeli hostages. But it is difficult to confirm these assessments. In any case, the IDF is continuing to search for the remnants of Hamas infrastructure and has taken the step of asking the civilian residents of Jabalia to temporarily evacuate to the shelters in the west of Gaza City so the Hamas battalions there can be dealt with. This was done in order to move them out of harm's way in accordance with international law. This is just one of many attempts that Hamas is making to re-establish civil administration in different parts of the Gaza Strip. The activity in Jabalia is estimated to last several days or possibly even weeks, and will include targeted searches and raids with information provided by the Shin Bet. In the center of the Gaza Strip, IDF forces have been deployed to the Zaytun area and have reportedly eliminated 30 terrorists in fierce battles. A tunnel was also located and demolished in the city in the last 24 hours. For everyone who thought the war in the Gaza Strip was winding down, be advised that Hamas is trying to reassert its control of many areas that it had previously been pushed out, and the IDF is fully engaged in eliminating these terrorist forces wherever they show themselves again. This includes some areas where the IDF has not previously operated, and also includes areas where Hamas was pushed out of before and is now trying to make a comeback. This is sometimes called mowing the grass, and it was the routine we were used to in the Gaza Strip for many years. It's a method that gives only temporary relief from problems, but it's all we've got for now. The IDF explains this is happening because most of the Gaza Strip continues to be what's sometimes called an ungoverned space, where there is no civil administration, no law and order, and no organized services for the civilian population. Terrorist organizations always thrive in such ungoverned spaces, and until the Gaza Strip somehow gets organized and administered by some kind of civil authority, Hamas will continue to be a problem there. Winning military victories against a terrorist enemy is not enough. It wasn't enough for the Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan over the past decades, and I could give many more historical examples of this. For a long-term victory and lasting peace, the terrorists must be defeated, but then they must be also replaced with a strong civil administration of some kind that will take care of the needs of the territory, the civilians, and the rest of the population there. So please help us by taking an active part in spreading the truth. If you'd like to see more videos and information about what is happening in Israel and the Middle East, please consider making a financial donation by clicking the link on this YouTube channel or by going to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel. Together we can share the truth and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Switching our focus now to events on the north. Tal Bari, the head of the research department of the Alma Center for the Study of Security Challenges in the North, spoke on Sunday at a conference dedicated to Israel's security challenges. During her remarks, she said that so far the IDF has not damaged the significant formations of Hezbollah. She added that even if the government finds some kind of diplomatic arrangement that will allow the current round of hostilities to end, a major war on Israel's northern border is inevitable in the near future. She said the only question is whether this war will begin with Israel having the initiative or with Hezbollah having the initiative. According to this analysis, the main problem is Hezbollah's precision missile project. The Iranian-backed terrorist organization possesses dedicated precision missiles such as the Fateh 110, which have a range of 350 kilometers and a strike radius of up to 10 meters. But they are also upgrading these precise missiles with kits that make them into GPS-guided weapons. These upgrades are reported to be fairly cheap and technically simple, meaning large numbers of so-called dumb bombs currently being aimed at Israel with soon-to-be smart missiles and much more dangerous. In addition, Berry warned that Hezbollah is watching the IDF operations in the Gaza Strip very closely, learning lessons and applying them to its own future plans. This is especially important in regards to tunnel warfare, which Hezbollah is very well prepared for, having dug extensive amounts of tunnels underneath southern Lebanon, with assistance and funding from North Korea and Iran. The United States and France are exerting very heavy pressure on Israel and Lebanon to try and find a way to move Hezbollah's fighters and terrorist infrastructure away from the Israeli border, so Israel will not be compelled to launch a military campaign against it. But researchers at the Galilee Institute think tank estimate that Hezbollah is simply using the time and political cover these negotiations provide in order to improve their bargaining positions as well as their military power. The Galilee Institute believes that these reports by the major powers are simply a form of oppressment that will not result in Hezbollah changing its behavior, but rather just give it time and space to become more dangerous. If I can give you my opinion, this assessment that negotiations only give Hezbollah time to get ready to do whatever they already decided to do, which is to violently attack Israel as soon as they can. History tells us that Israel is the only party that fulfills its side on the agreements that the international community tries to broker between it and Hezbollah. UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which brought the Second Lebanon War in 2006 to a conclusion, has been completely disregarded by Hezbollah, just for instance. And this is just one instance. All of this brings us to the question of why Iran and Hezbollah are so eager to make war on Israel. This question cannot be answered without looking at the religious aspects of this conflict, which is something most people rarely do. They want it to be about nationalism, or economics, or land, or other disputes that are not religious. But ignoring the religious aspect is a self-defeating waste of time. Iran and Hezbollah are motivated to attack Israel by a religious jihad. They believe that their God wants them to clear out the Jewish people from this country, and He will have no mercy on them if they don't do it. This is the very uncomfortable and inconvenient truth that we must face if we're ever going to solve any of these problems in this region. That's why we must fight for the truth. Spread it, share it, take a minute and click the follow button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, because that's how we can spread this news and information to more and more people. Right now, the 2-minute Remembrance Day sirens will start, so please join me in a moment of silence in memory of the fallen. On Sunday evening, the official ceremony at the Western Wall was held in the presence of the President of the State of Israel, Yitzhak Herzog, who came with a tear in his shirt label to mourn the October 7th massacre and the many victims of this war. He addressed the families of the hostages and promised not to be silent until they have all returned home. The IDF Chief of Staff General Herzi Halevi also spoke at the ceremony and emphasized once again his responsibility for the omission that allowed the massacre. I am responsible for answering the poignant questions that drive sleep from your eyes, Halevi said in an appeal to the bereaved families. I bear responsibility for the fact that the IDF failed in its mission to protect the citizens of the State of Israel on October 7th. I feel its weight on my shoulders every day, and in my heart I understand its meaning very well. Ahead of Memorial Day, the Ministry of Defense updated the number of Israeli martyrs from 1860s to today, which now stands at 25,040. This figure includes the 5 IDF soldiers who were killed in battles in the Gaza Strip this past weekend, and another soldier who was killed in a car accident while being on duty. From Memorial Day last year to today, 766 martyrs have been added to the number of the fallen and 61 veterans who died of complications from wounds they suffered in battles. 716 members of the Israeli security forces have fallen since October 7, including 642 IDF soldiers, 39 members of standby units, 68 Israeli police officers, and 6 Shin Bet agents. Please continue to pray for the safety of the IDF soldiers. Pray for the peace and recovery of the wounded soldiers. Pray for the peace of Israel, and most importantly, please join us in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. This is a spiritual war, and we need to unite in prayer in order to defeat this enemy, Hamas.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.